You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is my friend who I love so much. He's known as the Czar of Noir and the host of Turner Classic Movies Noir Alley. And we're going to be talking about his revised version of his book, Dark City. Welcome again to the show, Eddie. It's been too long. I've missed seeing you.
It has been. It's a pleasure to see you, Jan. I'm looking forward to our conversation very much.
Me too. Me too. So let's start because some of our guests may not know. How did you become the Czar of Noir? What was it that? What was the light within that made you pursue this as a career? Actually,
I'm going to level with you, Jan. It was kind of an accident. I mean, my fondness for film noir is certainly no accident, but I never anticipated any of the stuff that has happened. When I wrote the book Dark City: The Lost World of Film Noir way back when in 1998, it came out. I had no expectations for anything other than I just wanted to do a nice book. And then that led to being asked to program film festivals, and that kind of snowballed. And then I created a foundation to rescue and restore the films that I could not get my hands on for the film festivals I was doing. I didn't understand why films disappeared. Now I do. And then one thing led to another, and eventually TCM asked me if I would be interested in hosting a show. And all of this comes full circle. It comes all the way back to my updating and revising the original book. I've lost track. What is it, 22 or 23 years later?
right, yeah.
So yeah.
So what made you decide to revise and expand on Dark City, which is the Bible for a film noir enthusiast, by the way?
I appreciate your saying that. Well, it's certainly my take on the subject. I don't know if it's interesting. Some of the interviews I've been doing about the book, I make the point that it's not an encyclopedia. You know, the one kind of semi-negative review that I got on Amazon was from somebody who said, not all the films are in here. It's like, well, it was not my intention to be an encyclopedia. So anyway, the reason I decided to revise it, I'm happy to admit, is because I learned so much more since I wrote the first edition. It was never my intention in writing that book to come off like the world's foremost authority on the subject. Certainly not the case in 1999. I just wanted to share my enthusiasm for the films and kind of give my take on it, which I hope people find kind of different and creative. But then since then, like I said, I've done these film festivals and all of these other extracurricular things that have exposed me to so much more that it just seemed inevitable that I would do another edition. And honestly, I wanted to do it, 10 years ago. I mean, it felt to me like, oh, let's do a 10th anniversary edition, But that didn't happen. And then the 20th anniversary somehow managed to slip by as well. But like I say, I've discovered so much. Films that I didn't include in the first edition, stories about the making of the films that I didn't know when I wrote the first edition. So it was a great opportunity. Thanks to the show on TCM, it's I have a much bigger audience now, and so it was a perfect opportunity to expand and revise.
Timing is everything, right? You thought maybe it should have been done earlier, but this is the time. This is the right time.
That's absolutely right, Jan. That's something that I told myself many times, and about things other than just this book. Like things happen. You hope things happen when they are supposed to happen, and honestly, it was also very timely because I was home because of the COVID pandemic, And so it was like, well, this is great. Now I actually have the time to do this revised edition. So it really gave me a lot to focus on when I wasn't shooting my own show at home, which I had to do for a while for TCM.
I was going
But
to ask you about that. So you all, is that what happened during the pandemic? None of you flew into Atlanta to record the
no,
show?
no, no, no. We were all like in lockdown. So all of us, Ben, Dave, Jacqueline, Alicia, we all had to do our stuff from home. I mean, I turned the office I'm sitting in right now served as my Noir Alley set for quite a number of weeks, and it was learning on the fly, and it was fascinating to see how we went from being this super high toned production to being kind of a homemade thing, and putting that on the air, and people just went with it because everyone was in the same boat. Everybody sort of understood, hey, Jan, look, before COVID we couldn't have been doing this, right? Because this whole online form of communication is pretty much driven by the pandemic.
It is, and I think well, I'm Miss Pollyanna, so I think good things are coming out of the pandemic, for sure. And this is one of them because I think there's more accessibility now, because you don't have to go to a studio to do an interview. You can do it from your home nowadays. And as I said, I just have set up my entire, recording studio here and no longer have to go to the studio. And I think, and I do want to talk. I want to talk more about the book, but I also want to talk about your film festival because more film festivals are doing virtual and in person now. And I think what they found during the pandemic, and I know they did, that they expanded their audience, like Sundance and the Bentonville and TIFF. They're all a hybrid now, and I think going forward, it's always going to be that way. That it's going to be a hybrid film festival. So is that what you did with yours too? Because I know you have your film festival that you put on every year in San Francisco, but all across the country.
Right. I suspect you are right about that. We did do an online version of the festival because that was the one that we have in Washington, D.C. annually. And for various reasons, that was the best one. Just the timing was right to do an online version of that festival that was very successful. It was the most successful one at that venue ever in terms of the number of people that actually watched movies. And of
Right.
course they could check in from wherever they were. They didn't have to be in the auditorium. But I do think something is missed as well. And so much of my film festivals revolved around the great joy like-minded people took in finding each other. And it's just like when TCM does their film festivals, it's almost a tribal thing, like, oh,
Right.
you're an old movie fan too, I found my people here. And it's certainly that way with my festivals, and I really enjoy that. I like meeting people. I'm a very gregarious guy,
No.
and I think that the live component of what I do has been part of the success that the festivals and the Film Noir Foundation has had. So I don't ever want to give that up.
Right.
But who knows when we'll be back to nearly normal. It's very hard to say. I mean, for a
Right.
while there, it looked like, okay, we've got a handle on it, and then that wasn't the case. So um, I think you are correct, though. I mean, one of the reasons we do my festivals is because the foundation restores films and then we exhibit them. I mean, the whole process was kind of backwards for us as opposed to the way film restoration normally works, in that we had the exhibition capability. And so we would restore the films knowing we're going to show them in 8 different theaters around the country on film and, all this stuff, which is not normally the way it works for films that are restored. It's like they're restored out of the goodness of people's hearts, and then they beg to get them shown somewhere, right? I don't have
Right.
to worry about that part of it. But it's just different, but at least with the online version, people who live out in the hinterlands can see the films. They don't have to travel to one of the festivals to see them. So that's a very good thing.
It is, and also just worldwide. I mean, that's what Sundance has found. Many other places too. That because more people, it expands it to more people. I agree with you. There's nothing more fun and enjoyable than going to a film festival in person. And I agree with you on all of those. But for people who can't make it, or it's very expensive to go to these fly over all over
Yes,
to these film festivals and hotel and all of the other things. So for people who can't do that, this is a great way to expose them and be able to see those films that they may not be able to see. And this show, our tagline is bringing the film festival experience to your home, and that's what this is about. The
very
interviews that
good.
I do, that's what the genesis of the show has always been, is exactly that, bringing the film festival experience, because people don't get the background of a movie the way they do when you go to a film festival. So yeah, it's changing things. I think it's all gonna be good in the long run. Now, I'm just a little concerned about the theaters, unfortunately.
Well, yes,
Movie theaters.
that's the real challenge, is it, where I grew up in San Francisco, there were all kinds of repertory cinemas. That's where I got my film education. It started for me on television, watching Movies Till Dawn and Dialing for Dollars and that kind of stuff, and which I'm extremely grateful for. But it was free, and you could see all these fabulous old movies, but they had commercials in them. you know and then you discover repertory cinema where you can actually go see them on a big screen without the commercials. And in San Francisco, where I grew up, there were dozens of theaters like that showing old films, and now there's virtually none because people just would rather stream it at home, which is completely understandable. But
Right.
I'm with you. I want to do whatever I can to help these venues stay afloat. But it's just very difficult, as my festival, Noir City in San Francisco, was really unique because we could sell out on days that other venues were just dark. Like Monday through Wednesday, a lot of rep cinemas just don't even bother. They'll do shows Thursday to Sunday because they're just not going to get enough people in the house to make it worthwhile. But we were very successful, and we'd have, sold out shows on a Tuesday night, which is pretty unheard of,
Right.
especially in a venue as big as the Castro Theater in San
Hmm.
Francisco. So I hope we get back to it. I got my fingers crossed.
I hope so too. We lost our little independent movie theater here in Carmel, in Monterey County over the pandemic, and so I'm hoping somebody comes back and revitalizes it again because it's sorely missed. But it is hard. We all got used to watching movies at home, and now that certain, well, as we know, there are certain streaming services that are releasing them to the movie theater the same day that they're doing streaming, and it's hurting everybody doing it that way. So
It's
that'll be
very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting time in the business. I don't want to get too deep into this, but because I actually work for one of those outfits,
I
but
know.
but it is interesting that you probably know your movie history and remember that back in the late 1940s, the government issued an antitrust decree breaking up the monopoly that movie studios had on the movie business because they owned the product, they owned the distribution channel, and they owned the theaters in which the movies were shown. And it was considered to be monopolistic, and the government actually made them break that all up so that Paramount couldn't own the theaters, and MGM, Lowe, which grew out of the Lowe's theater chain, they had to divest their theaters. And now it's all happening again, only it's Netflix and Amazon and these that are coming in and buying the theaters. And so on the one hand, I'm saying, wow, this was an issue that was already dealt with decades ago. But the flip side of the coin is at least they're keeping the theaters open and alive. So,
Right.
the economics of the business are a little different than they were in the 1940s.
100%. And I think, and again, I kind of, I do applaud Netflix and Amazon and some of the other studios for purchasing some of these wonderful old theaters that they're revitalizing again. So, and I know in New York, I think it was the Paris Theater, or what I think that,
Yeah, the Paris in New York, yeah.
Yeah, and some of the other ones too. So I think that's only going to be good for the industry. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's an interesting time, as we all know.
Indeed, it is. Things change so fast. It really does make your head spin. Like you just sometimes you just can't keep up.
Exactly, and it is. It's hard. Well, let's
and it's
talk
funny Jan, it's funny. I'm throwing this out there. As I get older, I tell like my nephews and nieces and things. It's like, do you know that I used to actually send because I was a journalist. I said I would telex my copy into to foreign countries where I was a stringer for things, and they're like, "What's a telex?" And now it's like they don't even know what a fax machine is, right?
No.
And we went from all of these technologies that have existed in my lifetime, that have all been a part of how I earned my living. Honestly, 2 years ago, the idea of us doing an interview like this was absurd. I mean, we had done interviews in the past. I never got to look at your pretty face while I was doing an interview
Thank you.
before. It was just, it was on the phone, but now we can do this.
I know.
It's remarkable.
It's wonderful, actually. I prefer it, actually. It's nice to see my guest face when I'm talking with them.
Yep.
But let's get back to Dark City, because it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book, and I want anybody who's looking for a gift, for the upcoming holidays or wedding anniversary or birthday or any holiday. This is a great gift. It's a beautiful coffee table book. It's sitting on my coffee table, and so tell us a little bit about what's in this that's different than the first one, and what did you actually, I know there's a lot of we'll talk a little bit about it, but what did you do differently, and what did you add, and what was unique about this book for you?
When I initially conceived the book those many years ago, there were several chapters that I had to leave out, and I didn't even write them because I was just told in advance, you're being too ambitious. So I got to include those chapters in this version of the book, which are specifically about the City Desk, a chapter called The City Desk that's about newspapers and film noir, and how many of those films had newspaper reporters or investigative journalists as the protagonists. There's a chapter on the Big House prison movies, which is something that dovetails with film noir but doesn't get talked about very often. There's a chapter called The Stage Door, which is about show business noir. Actually, I think that's it. There were 4 chapters, but I only did 3 because the other one was about broke the spell of Dark City because it was about films set overseas. All the exotica, Calcutta and Saigon, and and all these movies that were Hollywood's version of these exotic foreign locales. I elected to leave that one out. And then all of the chapters that existed have been revised in various ways, mostly because stuff that I've learned subsequently, I was able to put in there. Like there's a whole section on Anne Sheridan and her movies, her noir movies that didn't exist in the first edition. And then the layout, the way we designed the layout this time, there were very definite little sidebars, like little things dropped into every chapter that are little detours into the lives of some of the people that made the films. If they were particularly significant to film noir, or if they led a noirish life that merited my talking about their off-screen antics as much as their on-screen work.
Let's talk a little. I mean, one of the things that that I think you've added more of is the female protagonist in these film noir movies. That maybe you didn't cover as much before. I'm not really sure, but
No, you pick that up, Jen. That is a major difference between the two books, is that a lot of the writing on film noir that existed at the time I was first doing my research, I'm just going to say, was very male centric. And it became very evident to me that film history was written by men. I'm not talking about film. I'm talking about the actual scholarly works, analyzing and talking about the industry and everything. It's all written by men.
Mhm.
And where film noir is concerned, that was doubly true, because so many people assume that film noir is a very masculine genre. You
Right.
know, the westerns may be a masculine genre, but film noir is not. I mean, it's an equal opportunity corrupter. So, um, and I realized when I was doing a lot of this research that women played a much bigger role behind the camera uh, than people realized. And so I'm not going to say I went out of my way to point this out, because I don't really think you have to go out of your way. You just have to see it.
Mhm.
You have to realize that, when you're looking at, a film like The Unsuspected or something, it's written by a woman. The source novel was written by a woman, Charlotte Armstrong. And that turns out to be the case with a lot of these films. The editors were women, several of them are produced by women, So I have a whole section on Joan Harrison, who's getting more recognition these days as being one of the really crucial producers in the history of film noir. Alfred Hitchcock's protege. And so yeah, that was something that I was very conscious of, and it was not any kind of make good thing, like a trendy thing. It's like this is for real, and this needs to be recognized. So
Well,
I'm glad you did.
I did, I very much so. So who do you think was, I think I know the answer to this, but who do you think was one of the best females who were in, some of the best film noir movies ever made?
Well, the ones I really give space to in this book, well, besides Joan Harrison, on screen, definitely Barbara Stanwyck and Joan Crawford. And I also, have two sections in the book on Ida Lupino,
Oh, I love that Filipino.
because firstly, I talk about her on-screen work, and then I talk about her behind the camera work when she was her own producer, writer, producer, and director. She didn't make a lot of noir when she got her hands on the controls, but it's so fascinating that the one film noir she did make has no women in it. It's all men, The Hitchhiker. And it's a really insightful exploration of male psychology. And a woman made the film. So I found that very, very interesting.
Very interesting.
And as you probably know, I just think the world of Barbara Stanwyck. I think she's the greatest actress in film history. And I think that Joan Crawford is a person who does not get enough credit for what she accomplished in the business, because she became kind of the butt of a joke, and her whole persona was sort of co-opted in the gay community, and that hides the fact that there was so much more to Joan Crawford than that. So I try to resurrect that other part of her career a little bit.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, when you watch her early work, and Barbara Stanwyck, I just love Barbara Stanwyck too. I like both of them. I really love watching their work. And you're right. Unfortunately, Joan Crawford, her reputation towards the end, unfortunately, foreshadowed everything else that she had done before,
I
which is
mean,
just sad.
as I like to, she made a lot of bad decisions. But as we say in film noir land, bad decisions make good stories.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, this is such a wonderful book. Where can people purchase this book?
Well, I would prefer if you order it through your local bookstore, your local independent bookseller. And I'm sure you know about Larry Edmunds' bookstore in Hollywood. It's like the oldest bookstore in Hollywood, and it caters exclusively to the movie crowd. And I'm happy to say that Larry Edmunds has sold, I think, over 700 copies of the book just
Wow.
there. And
Wow.
all that is online sales because you can't really shop in the bookstore right now.
Right.
But of course, it's available on Amazon and on the TCM website. You can get it straight from TCM as well.
Wonderful. Eddie, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. I'll have you back for your film festival coming up in the beginning of January.
Fingers are crossed for that.
Yes, fingers
Fingers are
crossed.
crossed.
Yes, for
Yes.
sure. Thank you. It's always a pleasure having you on the
Absolutely a
show.
pleasure, Jan, as
Always.
always.
Great to see your face. And I look forward, hopefully we'll see you at the Turner Classic Movie Film Festival next spring.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Again, fingers crossed.
Definitely. I'm saying definitely for
Okay.
that. That's a definite.
All right. And I'll let you buy me that drink you owe me. So
Will do.
that you promised
maybe
me
two.
last time.
Maybe
All right,
two.
sounds good. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thanks a million.
You. Thank you. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, and you can also listen on the iHeart Podcast Network, Apple, Google Play, iTunes, and please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can even get it on your smart TV. You can listen to The Jan Price Show and also on Twitter and Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.